The first period was reconciliation, and that was Madiba's presidency.
He had superhuman qualities of being able to suck it up and figure out what the best way is to do something.
In the space of a very few years, changed South Africa from the most intractable political problem in the world to, for a time, the poster child of democracy.
Those are some of the few things that I can take away from his life, and hope that through the scholarship we can begin to become little Mandelas in our own rights.
We're in South Africa, where we've gone in search of a man who helped to shape the nation. We've journeyed to Cape Town, taken a boat to the infamous Robben Island, and visited Constitution Hill in Johannesburg. We've been to Gugulethu Township and even spent time with a hip-hop band. We've heard that despite big changes since apartheid, there is still much work to be done. We've heard of a man of deep commitment, principles and compassion, a leader prepared to weigh in and get his hands dirty, to sacrifice, and, if necessary, to die for his cause. The man, Nelson Mandela. In this episode, we'll be learning more about Mandela's presidency and about leadership from some rather unexpected sources. On the 10th of May 1994, South Africa inaugurated its first ever black president. It was a day many South Africans would never forget.
How are you, General?
Very well, yourself?
I'm so happy. I didn't dare to see you. Hello, General. How are you?
Very well, yourself?
How are you?
Good morning, sir.
Greeted by the heads of the Army, Airforce and Navy, as well as the former head of state, FW de Klerk, Nelson Mandela, the former political prisoner, now had the most powerful state on the continent at his disposal. And after signing his name, Mandela and his African National Congress, or ANC, now had the responsibility of running the country. Despite the many frustrations during negotiations leading to the election, Mandela remained conciliatory, even reassuring.
We enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity, a rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world.
But rebuilding a country devastated by the ravages of apartheid would not be easy. It would require a commitment of energy,
Brick by brick, we build now.
and investment and that would require confidence in a bright future for South Africa. The country and the world turned to the new president for reassurance. Mandela, a leader who inspired confidence, was able to deliver. The country was suddenly the rainbow nation, and its new flag was flown everywhere. A sense of optimism seemed to seep into every sector of South African society. Once again, the Madiba magic was at work.
When I produced this book, The Mandela Files, which was a huge labor of love, it was a fantastic feeling to just to feel his involvement and to feel that this book was a summation of the best that I could produce of all of that.
Someone who got to enjoy the golden period of Mandela's presidency was this man. Zapiro started cartooning as an anti-apartheid activist in the early 1980s. After winning a scholarship to America, he returned to South Africa and has since won scores of awards. He also has 2 honorary doctorates and is a familiar figure at events like the World Economic Forum. He first met Mandela in 1994.
When I started drawing Madiba, I really battled with his face, and then something happened. It clicked in somewhere in '94. Clicked in, and I got his face, and he has started wearing the shirts, and this parallel persona that started appearing in the cartoons. It was particularly very much based on him, but very genial. The smile, the charisma, the warmth. And the cheekbone structure and everything. So that started to be the focus, and he would often appear in quite a benign sort of way in the cartoons.
Zapiro's use of satire to both criticize and applaud events in South Africa is unusual for a cartoonist.
I thought I would celebrate all these things that had happened in the coming of freedom, and the great hill the many more hills, but the first one here is Reconstruction. Celebratory cartoons are, by their nature, more difficult to do than critical cartoons. The cartoons, you want to see a cartoon that has edge, but I mean, I feel that Madiba, it was a very interesting thing through his presidency. I was sometimes able to kind of show him in different ways, actually dealing with crises where he was called in because he was such a good conciliator and somebody who had that moral sway over many people. I think people from the white community and how they changed towards Madiba because of his reconciliatory abilities and because they saw what they'd been missing. There were many of them who rationalized and kind of conveniently wiped out the fact that they had said, hang him. There are so many people in the white community. I remember it really well. I remember it as the 70s and the 80s. People were saying they should have hanged him.
Mandela's conciliatory gestures as president may have won him the confidence of the white minority and the outside world, but they also exposed him to criticism.
There are people who feel that Madiba was too easy on the regime, that he was perhaps negotiating where other people would have been more militant. So there are people on that side of the equation, and there were people who actually held it against him that he went behind. I mean, he was so much part of the collective, but he made this particular decision around negotiation, and hell, he must have been put through indignity by that bastard FW Botha. I mean, I just heard the other day from someone who told me, an insider who told me that FW Botha wouldn't allow him to come in the front door, even when he was secretly coming for talks. He couldn't come in the front door of Groteskuur, his residence. He had to go in through the back door. One thing that stands out about Madiba, when you compare him to other political leaders, both here and in other countries, is that he actually had the ability to understand and support criticism and satire. I got a phone call from him out of the blue, and the phone call, took me completely by surprise, and he played around with me, and as he tended to do with people, I found out afterwards. And I said to him, the thing that most impresses me, apart from the fact that you just picked up the phone and called me yourself, which was incredible, but I said, the cartoons since I met you, I had met him in '94, you would have seen them becoming more and more critical of the ANC and of government. And he said, oh, but that is your job. And that, to answer your question, is the difference between Madiba and all the rest.
Leadership qualities like those may be difficult to find, but Mandela himself believes they can be learned. Around the mountain from where Zapiro has his studio is the University of Cape Town.
I like it. It's arrogant, but it is quite a large difference.
My name is Gift Bule. I'm studying medical honors at University of Cape Town Medical School in human genetics. I'm from the Northwest, a small town called Mafikeng, and I am part of the Mandela Rhodes Foundation.
Gift Pule has attracted the attention of an organization that is taking Mandela's belief in the importance of leadership and education into the future.
As a young boy, I always wanted to understand things at the smallest level possible. I'd always get frustrated in class, for instance, when a teacher would go through a certain concept halfway through because I would not get the gist of it. I always wanted to get the whole picture, however, build it up with the smallest blocks possible. And I always thought that genetics allowed, it is basically the blueprint of all life.
One thing that Mr. Mandela was very, very clear on when he asked us to set up this foundation is he said he wanted it to be based on talent only. He said he wanted one of his organizations, because we are only one of them, to celebrate African excellence. And that's a wonderful brief. It makes my job, I can't think of a better job than having the ability and the resources to go out there, find the best and the brightest, and give them this amazing opportunity which allows them to move from being very good at what they're doing to being potentially great. This was the day that Walter Sisulu was released, and an extraordinary experience. He's sitting in his bedroom in Soweto. That was my colleague at the Weekly Mail called Tami Mkwanazi, who was a former Robben Island prisoner himself.
Sean Johnson, a former journalist and newspaper editor, is the organization's CEO.
Collect my collection of journalism, and the most extraordinary thing was in the middle of this.
The time he spent with Mandela as a journalist gave him insight into the man.
That is, I was born in the Transkei, and Madiba always made a nice joke of that, but here it was very serious, as he wanted to spend his last day as president back in the Transkei, and he asked me if I'd accompany him, so that's on his presidential jet. It was a wonderful moment. As I said to you, as long as it comes over as being about the foundation, not about us. Remember, he opened negotiations with the apartheid government from prison without the agreement of his colleagues, and that wasn't necessarily going to be accepted. So he took the risk. That is leadership. That is real leadership. He analyzed the situation in this country, and he decided that either reconciliation was going to be offered to those who were going to give up power, he was going to charm them out of power, or we would simply continue where we were, and in the end, inevitably the majority would win, but they would inherit a smouldering wreck of a country. That's what he decided.
That sort of leadership is what the foundation hopes to encourage and nurture in its African scholars.
This was the first cohort, and you can see when we started, we had approximately 8 scholars in the first year. I've had
Teresa Larker-Daniels helps identify up to 30 scholarship recipients every year.
Amazing people in society. These are amazing scholars. I actually become emotional talking about them because all of them have such amazing capacities and capabilities and abilities. And what I hope them to become, I just hope them to become productive icons, if there's any such word, on the continent, where they can contribute in such a way that makes sure that the future of this continent will continue being better than what it currently is.
Some of the stories that my grandmother would tell us about what had happened, because she's very old. My dad has always been, I'd say, a very silent individual in terms of those sorts of things, trying to protect his children. But I mean, yes, I was born after Mandela came out of prison. However, I mean, apartheid did not end in 1994 after the election of our first democratic president. It's still here a bit, but you learn to get over it, and you learn to grow a thick skin, if you may, at an early age, and that allows you to take things along your stride and take as much as you can from a situation that you really can't really change, but you can learn from. Given that it was a very, very racially separated area that I grew up in, jeans have no color. So at that level, there's no way that you can tell that this individual is yellow, green, or purple. So it was always an out, even I think, out of the situation that the time or the area that I grew up in had perpetuated the idea of racism. The wash. So this is Eluit, so that's 1.21. Moving forward, it is something that can definitely be changed. It's going to take a long time though. I mean, we're a few years into democracy and there's still some remnants of, you could call it apartheid, but it's really now different struggles that the youth are faced with. It's not so much fighting the system, it's fighting other issues like unemployment and lack of education and the likes. So it's definitely something that can be changed with time.
So that's pretty cool. And then what you guys did is you even forged ahead and you even did stuff which we're going to do today, which is quite cool because that means there's less information overload for you guys now. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to really check how well your purification was.
Education affords the daughter of a peasant to become a doctor, the son of a mine worker to become a mine manager, and like he says, the son of a farm worker to become the president of a nation. So it is not what you are given, but what you do with it. So those are some of the few things that I can take away from his life and hope that through the scholarship we can begin to become little Mandelas in our own rights. Make the volume 15.
Do you just chop it up to make it
15, yeah.
regardless of hesitation?
Yeah. The leadership of the individual is the ability for him to pull a group of very spirited individuals during the times of Mkondo Wesizwe, for instance, that wanted to overturn apartheid by all means possible and going to all extents necessary, and making sure that we come out of a very bad time in South Africa and not into a civil war, which most of the world probably anticipated. I mean, lots of people who perhaps would have become president after such a bad period in South Africa would have wanted to effect immediate change. like the white people were bad for this country. They imposed a lot of bad policy that subjugated black individuals. However, he went for the more subtle approach. I mean, I think some of his cabinet in 1994 was coming from the apartheid regime itself.
Was Mandela too conciliatory?
So his timing is good.
Okay, good. You boot us out, yeah.
Ahmed Kathrada is an old colleague of Mandela's and was jailed alongside him.
There was our former enemy. There were the rival organizations. But the main thing was our former oppressors. See? So the first period was reconciliation. And that was Madiba's presidency. The 5 years he spent a lot of his time on reconciliation, forgiveness, reconciliation. Of course, it was accepted by everybody, but he became the public face of that aspect.
I think he had superhuman qualities of being able to suck it up and figure out what the best way is to do something, knowing that he's going to have to absorb some kind of indignity and kind of go against some principled but continuously militant comrades, all of that. I think he had an incredible ability to understand the big picture.
Zapiro's pictures have chronicled all of Mandela's presidency. Those years included some magnificent triumphs, not only of the personal kind for Mandela, but also for the nation, including on the sports field. Mandela continued to be feted around the world, and at home continued to pull everyone together behind the ideal of nationhood. But those golden years of the new South Africa were not without pain. The Truth and Reconciliation Committee laid bare some gruesome facts. And as not all the atrocities were laid at the door of the apartheid regime, this made for uncomfortable reading for the ANC. Mandela may have been forgiving of criticism, but others were not. Mandela's romance with Graça Machel, following his acrimonious divorce from Winnie, was an easy subject for some light-heartedness. And politics being politics, Mandela's image couldn't always be kept squeaky clean.
Central Ihlahla the righteous. It's nothing serious, just the occasional slipped halo. That was Jake Schervel, but it could have been anyone. And they're trying to get the halo back with the giant crane. And there's an ironic use of the saint, because he's doing something where his saintliness is showing a few cracks.
Inevitably, the 5 years of his presidency passed by almost too quickly. And at the end of his first term, Mandela, just as he had promised, stood down. It was a sad moment for a nation that had fallen in love with a living example of what is possible, if only we dare dream.
As he's got older and been sanctified, which he's begged people not to do, people almost treat him like this sweet old grandpa now, not understanding what an amazing political intervention that was, that in the space of a very few years changed South Africa from the most intractable political problem in the world to, for a time, the poster child of democracy. Now, we've become normal, so we have plenty of problems, and what we need is the new generation of Mandelas, and that's who we are.
That search has been made more difficult by South Africa's struggle to improve education. But there are signs of hope as a new generation takes up the challenge.
Our water, our pride. Ons water, ons trots. The youth are very important. I mean, they are the next us. I'm hoping that some of these learners will want to do what we do one day, whether it's about water or whatever, any sort of awareness campaign. I hope that they can also do this. And so they're important because we need them to lead us one day. And when we're old and grey, we need good leaders. I think he's done such amazing work. He is such a peace icon and such a strength icon. He's one of the few people that I think, as all the new generations come along, kids and that type of thing, he's someone that should always be taught about. So he's someone that everybody should learn about. He's just the way he is. He's compassionate, he's kind, he's sincere, he's caring, and he's genuine. So I think what he's done with children has been awesome. What he's done to everybody has been awesome.
Zapiro has chronicled the years of becoming normal, too. That hasn't always been comfortable. Problems with AIDS, education, health, corruption and tardy service delivery have plagued the ANC leadership.
Here in the centenary year of the ANC, we're seeing political turmoil, we're seeing people struggling to recoup past glory. I've done cartoons where I show the great past and obviously the contrast with the present and potentially the future. And Madiba represents the past and the best of what we can be, and the best of the struggle and the embodiment of that struggle. So for all the cartoons, when I look at the things that I've produced over the past 3-4 years, it's bleak. The end of the book, this bit here you see this bunch of cartoons that I've done since the book are scary for me to look at, because they represent so many. There's some of them that are feel good, as they tend to be when I celebrate a few milestones, but there are many of them that are searing and tough. This was the 20th anniversary of his walking out of prison. 1990, as he walks out of the prison, looking towards 2010, on second thoughts. And just imagine myself, to think that I could even imagine that scenario just as a hyperbole, but the idea that he would say, wait a minute, I don't even know if I want to go out there, seeing as we see this greed, corruption, sex scandals, infighting and non-delivery and all that, what has happened?
They may be painful, but many of the ills of South Africa today may be considered rites of passage to a more normal nationhood. And there remains plenty of hope, plenty to be optimistic about. Not least of all is the many young Mandelas waiting in the wings.
Sinada.